I've talked in earlier videos about how concepts get their meaning, and also about logical possibility, impossibility, and necessity. But there might seem to be an objection one could raise against this, especially connected to a concept called a posteriori necessity. So we'll take a look on this now as a possible objection, and then I'll respond to it. So there is this distinction, which is famous from the philosopher Immanuel Kant, between analytic and synthetic statements, where analytic statements are true because of the definition of the terms involved, whereas synthetic statements are true because of how the world is. The former can then be verified independently of experience, a priori, which means before experience, while the latter cannot, and then we call it a posteriori, which is after the experience. So a traditional example would be a bachelor is unmarried. If you know that bachelor means an unmarried man, then you can know that this is true. A priori, you don't need to go and ask 1,000 or a selection of representative bachelors and ask them all whether they are unmarried, because if you know what bachelor means, you know that the statement is true. Whereas the statement John is bachelor, then we need to ask John or find out whether John is married or not in order to find out whether it's true that John is a bachelor. Then the philosopher Sol Kripke added a new concept, which he called a posteriori necessity, where he argued that there are some concepts that they have this necessary meaning or content, but you can't know until you have discovered it, that this was actually necessary. So water is H2O would be an example of this. Water is necessarily H2O, but we didn't know that until we explored or discovered more about water and learned that it's this combination of hydrogen and oxygen. One could then argue that when I've talked about how concepts get developed their meaning over time, or I just said that we need to make a distinction between logically possible, impossible, and necessary, it might seem that I was lacking something. Maybe there are some concepts that have this meaning that you can this necessary meaning that you can discover. So how do I respond to that as a possible objection? Well, I maintain that concepts change their content over time in the light of experience, and I think that this goes for all examples. So also concepts like bachelor or water. We can reflect and discuss whether what does it mean if a bachelor means an unmarried man? Does that mean that a 12-year-old boy is a bachelor? Do you have to be 18 or do you have to be older? What about the Pope or people who are in celibacy? Is the Pope a bachelor, or what do we mean with bachelor? What if our understanding of sex and gender change over time? Maybe the concept of bachelor will change its content again. Same with water. There's a lot of things in the world that we think of as water, but which aren't H2O. There are many different chemical compounds that make up what we call water in this world. And it's a matter of discussion what we want the concept of water to mean or not. So concepts, they have these fluid boundaries. What we can do is we can say here and now, given X, we can, in this context, given these presuppositions, then and this meaning of this concept, then we could say that a certain statement is consistent or inconsistent to deny, given these presuppositions. But these presuppositions change over time, and that was my point. And for this reason, we don't need the categories of analytic or synthetic or a posteriori necessary to add something to what I have already said. It suffices with what has been said. So we can use the concept, but not because they are needed to add something new. So that was my response then to this possible objection to what I've said before.